ॐ ज्ञानतिमिरन्धस्य ज्ञानाञ्जनशलाकया चक्षुरुन्मिलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः। श्रीचैतन्यमनोभीष्टं स्थापितं येन भूतले स्वयं रूप कदा मह्यं ददाति स्वपदान्तिकं। वन्देऽहं श्रीगुरून् श्रीयुतापदकमलं श्रीगुरून् वैष्णवांश्च श्रीरूपं साग्रजातं सगण रघुनाथान्वितं तं सजीवं साद्वैतं सावधूतं परिजनसहितं कृष्णचैतन्यदेवं श्रीराधा कृष्णपादान् सगण ललिता श्रीविशाखान्वितांश्च हे कृष्ण करुणा सिन्धु दीनबन्धो जगत्पते गोपेश गोपिका कान्त राधा कान्त नमोऽस्तुते तप्त काञ्चन गौराङ्गी राधे वृन्दावनेश्वरी वृषभानुसुते देवी प्रणमामि हरिप्रिये वाञ्छाकल्पतरुभ्यश्च कृपा सिन्धुभ्येव च पतितानां पावनेभ्यो वैष्णवेभ्यो नमो नमः। जय श्री कृष्ण चैतन्य प्रभु नित्यानंद श्री अद्वैत गदाधर श्रीवासादि गौर भक्त वृंद हरे कृष्णा कृष्णा कृष्ण हरे 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 राम 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 हरे हरे. Okay. So we will continue our reading on Bhagavad Gita. We are there in the first chapter till 29 sloka we had finished. So we will start from 30th. Nacha shaknomyavastatum brahmati vaccha me manah nimittani cha pashyami viparitani keshava. I am now unable to stand here any longer. I am forgetting myself and my mind is reeling. I see only causes of misfortune, O Krishna, killer of Keshi demon. So here Arjuna is actually expressing his inability or his confusion or his instability in his position in continuing the fight, right? So let's see the purport. Due to his impatience, Arjuna was unable to stay on the battlefield and he was forgetting himself on account of his weakness of his mind. Excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence. Bhayam dvitiyad abhiniveshatashyat. Such fearfulness and loss of mental equilibrium takes place in a person who are too attached by material conditions. So here, as we were seeing in the previous purports, also this thing alternates. Sometimes Prabhupada actually glorifies in the Acharya actually glorifies in the purport the Arjuna's condition, wherein he's a saintly person and he's having compassion, and that's why he's he's speaking in this way and he wants to pardon them and things like that. And at the same time, other purports we will see some things like this, where this is completely a material emotion and it is out of too much of attachment to material things and things like that. So it's two different perspectives, and no, it's not that a person is completely one-sided. No, you will have mixed emotions that will be there in a person. So here, no, Prabhupada is actually bringing about that mixture in different purports, the different moods that are explained here, right? And here we see, due to his impatience, Arjuna was unable to stay on the battlefield and he was forgetting himself on account of this weakness of mind. An excessive attachment for material things puts a man in such a bewildering condition of existence. And this excessive attachment to material things. Why attachment to material things have to put a person in bewildering condition? Because this sloka that Prabhupada is quoting is a very important thing. Bhayam dvitiyad abhiniveshatashyat ishad apetasya viparyoyo smritihi. No? So this is when we see any entity that is separate from the Lord. Bhayam dvitiya. Dvitiya means like second entity. No? So, but from the Vedanta Sutra, we understands ekameva advitiyad. No, that is also another statement. That means there is only one entity that exists in the entire creation. That is the Supreme Lord, and the Lord and His energies are there. So this material nature is energy of the Lord. We, the living entities, are energy of the Lord. So all of us are energy of the Lord. But if we see this energy to be separate from the Lord, bhayam dvitiyad, not something that is existing apart from the existence of the Lord. So then immediately fear no sets in. Bhayam dvitiyad abhiniveshatasya. So such fearfulness, no, and laws of mental equilibrium take place in a person who are too attached by material conditions. So essentially, what is material? If I see something separate from Lord, that becomes material. If I can see every object's connection to the Supreme Lord, then there is nothing material over there. Everything is spiritual. If I can see even the matter, even the earth, water, fire, air, ether, in connection to Lord, then it becomes spiritual. It's not matter anymore, right? So material means to see things separate from Krishna. So in our Bhagavatam discussions, we had seen in the Chaturshloki Bhagavatam, no, the Lord very clearly gives the definition of illusion or material thing. So illusion means that which is seen separate from the Lord, that which is seen, an object is seen and we are not able to see its connection to the Lord, then that becomes illusion, right? So that's the aspect of illusion. So now this is, here it is mentioned that Arjuna was in this kind of fearful situation because of his too much attachment to the material things. Because he was too much attached to material things, he's getting this fear, right? Okay. Arjuna envisioned only painful reverses in the battlefield. He would not be happy even by gaining victory over the foe. The word nimittani, viparitani are significant. When a man sees only frustration in his expectation, he thinks, why am I here? Everyone is interested in himself and his own welfare. No one is interested in the Supreme Self. Arjuna is showing ignorance of his real self interest by Krishna's will. One's real self interest lies in Vishnu or Krishna. The conditioned soul forgets this and therefore suffers material pains. Arjuna thought that his victory in the battle would only be a cause of lamentation for him. Right? So even if he gets victory or defeat, whatever it is, no, everything is going to be a lamentation for him. He's only seeing pain, no, and reverses in front of him. There is no other option that is there apart from this. Right? So that's the kind of position. So many times we will also be going through this kind of situations in life where we don't see anything else apart from pain and reverses, no anything else apart from no like uh, unfortunate things happening around, right? So but then we'll have to keep our cool on, and things will change, as Krishna mentions, matra sparshas tu kaunteya sitoshana sukha dukkada agama bhayano anityas tam titikshvasva bharata. So in this world, we'll keep throwing different kind of things at us, but we have to just keep our cool and then go on and keep the goal of attaining the lotus feet of the Supreme Lord. So then we can tolerate all the other pains that are coming in, and we can actually move forward. Until unless we have a strong goal, a higher goal like that, the material things are bound to frustrate people. The material things are bound to frustrate people. Nobody can say that I'll be a materialistic person and I'll be happy. It's like quite contradictory a statement. We saw in the introduction to Bhagavad Gita also, we were discussing this particular aspect, that this aspect of trying to find happiness in this world is an illusion. If somebody is telling that he is happy in this world, it's an illusion. And if somebody is not able to find happiness in this world, it's perfect. No, it's not a place of happiness. Dukkhalayam ashashvatam, Krishna mentions. So that's how this world is, right? So like an intelligent man will make plans to go back to the spiritual world, to attain the lotus feet of the Lord. So that's the intelligence. Okay, text 31. There is a question why Arjuna is mentioning here Krishna as killer of Keshi demon. So this unfortunate situations, what is coming up in front of him, no, it is almost like a demon kind of this one. What does a demon do? Demon gives pain, and these situations in front of him is giving him pain. So he's telling Krishna, like, you killed no such powerful demons, like why not you set right this situation for me, right? So that's the way we can actually, or why are you yeah, so I'm able to see only a misfortune or unfortunate situation. So this is a way he's addressing the Lord. So text 31, Nacha shreyo nupashyami hatva svajanamahave nakangshe vijayam Krishna nacha rajyam sukhani cha. I do not see how any good can come from killing my own kinsman in this battle, nor can I, my dear Krishna, desire any subsequent victory, kingdom, or happiness. Purport. Without knowing that one's self interest is Vishnu or Krishna, conditioned souls are attracted by bodily relationships, hoping to be happy in such situations. In such a blind conception of life, they forget even the cause of material happiness. Arjuna appears to have even forgotten the moral codes for a Kshatriya. It is said that two kinds of men, namely the Kshatriyas who die directly in front of the battlefield and under Krishna's personal orders, and the persons in the renounced order of life who is absolutely devoted to spiritual culture, are eligible to enter into the sun globe, which is so powerful and dazzling. Right? So here we see this ultimate self-interest without knowing that one's ultimate self-interest nate vidu swartha gatim hi Vishnu. So without knowing that our actual self-interest is attaining Krishna or Vishnu, a conditioned soul is attracted to so many things, hoping that if I get this thing, this material thing in my life will become happy. If I just get a little more money, I'll become happy. If I get a little position or some people around me and things like that, no, I'll become happy. So in this way, there are so many different ways a person actually thinks that these things can make me happy. But then, no, nate viduhu, like, no, they are not able to understand, no, swartha gatim hi Vishnu. So real swartha is Vishnu. No, until unless a person comes to this point, my real swartha, my real self-interest is Vishnu, he will never be able to become satisfied. So he'll never be able to understand his real swartha, real swa artha. Artha means like benefit or profit. No, swa artha, like no, to the self benefit or self satisfaction. No, it's possible only if we attain the lotus feet of the Lord. Otherwise, it is not possible, right? So here, Arjuna is not able to even find the material happiness. Even for to be materially happy, a person needs a level of detachment. A person needs a level of mode of goodness. Until unless he comes to the point of mode of goodness, he cannot even expect material happiness to be there, because this world is bound to be reverses. There is bound to be so many reverses happening in this world. Nobody can expect to be happy all the time. So that's actually illusory, right? So here Arjuna is appearing to have forgotten the moral codes of a Kshatriya. So what is the moral codes? What is it that is going to help him, or that's going to make him make him or put him in a better position of happiness? He has got a wonderful opportunity to fight a battle under the direct instruction of the Lord. And if he does so, what's the benefit? He will enter into the heavenly realm, and he will get a higher destination. As Prabhupada is mentioning here, they'll be eligible to enter into sun planet. So sun and moon are heavenly planets. So they are able to enter into that higher planets. And in fact, it is mentioned the two kinds of deaths is very good. People actually look forward for such kind of a death. So Kshatriyas fighting in the battle and fighting a dharma yuddha and leaving their bodies like that, and then a person in the renounced order or a spiritually advanced person, after the maturity of his sadhana, he quits his body. These two are considered to be glorious deaths. These two are considered to be very, very nice. Nice way of leaving the body from this world, right? So Arjuna is reluctant. We'll continue the purport. Arjuna is reluctant even to kill his enemies, let alone his relatives. He thinks that by killing his kinsmen, there would be no happiness in his life, and therefore he is not willing to fight, just as a person who does not feel hunger is not inclined to cook. He has now decided to go into the forest and live a secluded life in frustration. But as a Kshatriya, he requires a kingdom for his subsistence, because Kshatriyas cannot engage themselves in any other occupation. This is a very important point to note, that all of us have got a particular nature we have acquired, and we have to work according to our nature. And in the third chapter, we will see no, Krishna will be explaining that nobody can work against his nature. No, even if you, sometimes Prabhupada gives this example, even if you dress up a dog very nicely and then no, you dress him up like a king and put him on a throne and then throw no stone, sorry, throw a bone piece in front of him. No, he will immediately jump off the throne and he'll just like go and lick that bone piece, right? So that is his nature. No, just because he's put in the throne and he's dressed up like a king, is he going to act in a different way? No, he will act according to his nature. Whatever the nature is acquired, nobody can act against it. Everybody will act just according to their nature. So in that way, if a Kshatriya who is not purified his senses and he is still not come to the highest stage of mode of goodness and things like that, if he goes to the forest and live a life of a vanaprasthi or no life of a renunciant, so his senses will not allow him to stay in the forest. No, forest is in mode of goodness, and this person is in mode of passion. No, it will not tally. He cannot just stay there like that. So it is not possible. So for Kshatriya, he needs to have an engagement for manage and administer. That is a very important engagement that he needs to have. And Arjuna cannot, either he does that or he just get killed in the battle and die. So there is no other option for Arjuna, right? So he should not be thinking about these things. In fact, no Kshatriya will no worry about getting killed. In fact, I had mentioned this previously also, that Kshatriyas from different parts of the world had assembled there, and many of them knew the power and strength of Bhishma, Karna, Arjuna, Bhima, and all these people. So, in front of them, many of the kings, many of the Kshatriyas who had come to the battlefield, they knew that they are nothing in front of these great warriors. But still, for them, it is like it's like a person who is very attached to eating gulab jamuns. When he see a gulab jamun, how happy he'll become. In the same way, like the Kshatriyas become very happy by seeing an opportunity to fight. So that's what Krishna also mentions later on, I think in the second chapter. No, happy are those Kshatriyas, no, who get an opportunity to fight and give up their no bodies in a battlefield. If a person is fearing about his life, then he cannot be even called as Kshatriya. Kshatriyas, they don't have any attachment to living or death. They have attachment to the principles. They have attachment to like valor and power and things like that. So for that, they can give up their life. No, that's not a big deal at all for them, right? So that's a very different kind of a thought process. What a Kshatriya's thought process is. So that's how they think. And here, Arjuna is not thinking to run away because fear of life. That is never a case. He's overcome by compassion. No, he's overcome by compassion or attachment to his relatives and things like that. So he's not thinking about, no, he's not worrying about, oh, if I fight this battle, what if I get killed? No, that's never a case for him. No. Okay, let's continue. But Arjuna has no kingdom. No, a Kshatriya has to rule, but he doesn't have any kingdom. Arjuna's sole opportunity for gaining a kingdom lies in fighting with his cousins and brothers and reclaiming the kingdom inherited from his father, which he does not like to do. Therefore, he considers himself fit to go to the forest to live a secluded life of frustration. This should never be the case for a renunciation. Renunciation, going to the forest and living a secluded life, means renunciation. And why should one renounce? For attaining the higher destination or a higher goal. The renunciation should never be because of this material life is too frustrating, or no, it's either if I do it right or do it wrong, anyways, like I'm going to suffer here. So better I'll renounce everything and I'll go to the forest. That's never to be done like that. Renunciation should be done for a higher cause. No, it's like saying if somebody most of us would have this opportunity to face an interview and getting selected in a company or something like that. So if we are shortlisted in the interview and then we are called upon by the HR and then he asks why do you want this job? And if you say sitting at home, I feel very bored. So I thought I'll just have some change of environment. and immediately he'll throw you out of the job, right? So you'll not get that job. So in the same way, like, I want to go to the forest. Why? Because this life over here is frustrating. So I'll go to the forest, and he'll remain frustrated in the forest also. So taking up a renounced order of life means, he should have a goal that I should achieve the lotus feet of the Lord. I should dedicate myself for advancing in Krishna consciousness, and that is the reason he should actually take on to a life of renunciation. And here Arjuna is saying, "Oh, this battle is, I am seeing, like, no, whether I win or lose, it's all pain. So I'll give it up. I'll go to the forest." This is completely a wrong reason for renunciation, right? Okay, text 32 to 35. Kim no rajyena govinda kim bhoger jivitena va yesham arthe kangshitam no rajyam bhoga sukhani cha tayime vyavasitha yuddhe pranam styaktva dhanani cha acharyaः putras tataiva cha pitamahaः matula swasura pautraः shala sambandhinasthatha etan hantumiच्छामि नतोपि मधुसूदन अपि त्रैलोक्यराजस्य हेतो किं नु मही कृते निहत्यदादराष्ट्रान्नः का प्रीति स्यात् जनार्दन. Okay. O Govinda, of what avail to us are a kingdom, happiness, or even life itself, when all those for whom we may desire them are now arrayed on this battlefield? Right? So he's telling that Kim no Rajyena Govinda, Kim Boher Jivitenava. Right? So what is the use of this kingdom? No, Kim Boger. No, what is the use of the happiness? Jivitenava. Like, even what is the use of even living? Right. So why he's telling all these things? He's telling that Yesha Marte, no, for whose benefit we want all these things. Kangshitam no, Rajyam Bhoga Sukhanicha, Taime Vavasita Yuddhe. The very same people are standing here, no, for fighting with me. Pranam Staktva Dhananicha. So they are ready to give up their lives. No, what's the point? No, what's the point to fight this battle? So, oh Madhusudana, when the teachers, fathers, sons, grandfathers, maternal uncles, fathers in law, grandsons, brothers in law, and other relatives are ready to give up their lives and properties and are standing before me, why should I wish to kill them, even though they might otherwise kill me? O maintainer of all living entities, I am not prepared to fight with them, even in exchange for the three worlds, let alone this earth. What pleasure will we derive from killing the sons of Dhritarashtra? Purport. Arjuna has addressed Lord Krishna as Govinda because Krishna is the object of all pleasures for cows and the senses. So we had discussed in one of the previous sessions, Go means cows, Go means senses. So Govinda means one who gives pleasure to the cows and the senses, right? By using this significant word, Arjuna indicates that Krishna should understand what will satisfy Arjuna's senses, because Govinda is means he should satisfy the senses of no he should be the pleasure giver of the senses. So this is one of the things I was just discussing with some devotees. So they were telling that no, people, the materialistic people, they say, oh, like, no, this God is not listening to your prayers, no, better change the God, like, no, better go to somebody who will listen to you, right? So here Arjuna is also in that kind of a situation. No, Krishna, like, you are Govinda, you are supposed to give pleasure to the senses, and I am in suffering. Where are you? No, why are you not giving pleasure to my senses? So that's the question that Arjuna is actually putting. And let's see, continue the purport. But Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our senses are satisfied. Materially, everyone wants to satisfy his senses, and he wants God to be the order supplier for such satisfaction. Right? So the Lord will satisfy the senses of living entities as much as they deserve, but not to the extent that they may covet. So this word covet or covetousness means earn, to possess or have. No, it's like they are earning. No, means they are just eager to possess so and so things. In the material world, nobody has any limits to their desires. No, if somebody has a desire, you fulfill that desire. They'll say, like, they'll get 100 more desires in the line, in the pipeline. So the desires are compared to an itch, or desires are compared to a fire with a constant supply of fuel. So the desires are never going to end, right? So always we like to covet, always uh, we like certain things. If you go to the shop and you like so many things, but then how much you have in your pocket to spend, or how much is your budget to spend, right? So it's always a mismatch. So here every living entity deserves something based on their karma, but then they want more than what they deserve. No, always they want more than what they deserve, and they feel that they deserve a lot, but actually no, they don't deserve. So, and it's constantly a pain, like constantly a pain, thinking that I deserve this, why is the Lord not giving me this, and things like that. So it's very clearly mentioned, the Lord will satisfy the senses of the living entities as much as they deserve, but not to the extent they may covet, right? So, but before this point, Prabhupada also makes another very wonderful point. Govinda is not meant for satisfying our senses. No, this is a very, very important point. If we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, however, then automatically our own senses are satisfied. So, this is the powerful solution of Krishna consciousness. If we try to satisfy the senses of Krishna, then our senses will become satisfied. Yata taror mula nishechanena trupyanti yat skanda bhujopashaka. Right? So by watering the root of a tree, all the parts of the tree becomes happy. We are part and parcel of the Lord. And if we water Krishna, and if we actually try to satisfy Krishna, serve Krishna, then how can we not become happy? We will definitely become happy, right? So otherwise, if we want certain things and we make the Lord an order carrier, or like, now I want this, you get me this, you get me that, and things like that, we will only be in frustration. No, we should be, whatever is by the will of the Lord comes, that is called prasad. And that prasad, we should become happy. No, daiva labdena santosha. Whatever by the mercy of the Lord comes, we should become happy. In fact, every day morning we have a japa session where 5 o'clock to 7:30, all of us get together in a Zoom link, and then try to do japa. And at around 5:30 we have a short session, and in that today I was mentioning, like for just for a 10 minutes we have a short session. So in that we had the very same discussion today, that no, if we try to endeavor a lot for material things, no, how much should we endeavor for material things? We should do something very basic, and like without much endeavor, what we can actually get is what is there in our karma, and or that's what we deserve. More than that, if I over endeavor, I will still get something better than what I'm supposed to get, but then that will be source of pain, because that is, I'm not supposed to enjoy that, I'm not supposed to get it, by I forcibly get it, then that will be the cause of greatest pain in my life, right? So whatever comes by the will of the Lord, and whatever comes by the destiny, or whatever karma that we have already acquired, that we should be satisfied with. No, over and beyond that, if we try to get it, it will be very, very difficult to manage, and it will be no, it will be a cause of no super pain in our life. So that's why this prayasa, or over endeavor, or a very intense endeavor, is required to attain the lotus feet of the Lord, not for getting some material thing, no, not for getting some cheap material thing, right? So that is the thing that we have to make sure that no, we are not over endeavoring for material things. No, till the time we over endeavor for material things, which we are not able to get it, but we are like trying and trying and trying, like no, trying our hard. So then, even if we get it, it will be source of great misery and pain. Okay, so let's continue. But when one takes the opposite way, namely when one tries to satisfy the senses of Govinda without desiring to satisfy one's own senses, then by the grace of Govinda, all desires of the living entity are satisfied. So this is an ultimate thing. And we see this thing happening in Dhruva Maharaj's case. Dhruva wanted a greater kingdom, and then he prayed to the Lord that he was engaged in tapasya, in pleasing the Lord. No, during the tapasya, he was not thinking about the land or the territory and things like that. He was just one pointed focus in meditating on the Lord, right? And then, no, when the Lord appeared, he told that, no, Swamin Kritatoham Varam Nayache. No, I'm very, very satisfied just by getting your darshan. I don't need anything else now. So, but then all his desires are fulfilled. No, no, he had a desire to get a bigger kingdom. So the Lord fulfilled that desire, and then no, he also got spiritual benefits and the material benefits. So we need to have this one-pointed focus in devotional service. Akama sarva kamavo moksha kamo darati tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. So one has to, either he has material desires. Akama means like he doesn't have any material desires. Sarva kama, no, he have all material desires. Or moksha kama, he has a desire for getting liberation. Any one of these cases, no, whatever may be the case, no, tivrena bhakti yogena yajeta purusham param. So with tivra bhakti, no, we have to ejeta, we have to worship purusham param, the supreme Lord, right? So that is the way of getting what is that, ultimate satisfaction, right? So in fact, yesterday, in the Bhagavatam installation program, we were reading this particular shloka, right? Savai pumsa paro dharma yato bhaktir adokshaje ahai tuki aprati hata yayatma suprasidati. So this is the only thing which can actually make us suprasidati, no, like su means superlative degree, or no, it's a higher status. Suprasidati, prasidati means, no, to become very happy, really happy from the core of the heart. So what is that? No, savai pumsa, for every living entities, for every human being, savai pumsa paro dharma, the superlative religious principles, paro dharma, yato bhakti adokshaje, no, bhakti towards adokshaja, bhakti towards the Supreme Lord. And here in this purport it is mentioned, bhakti towards Govinda, to satisfy, the more we try to satisfy the senses of Govinda, more we will be pleased deep from within, right? So that's a very important thing. Okay, Arjuna's deep affection for community and family members is exhibited here partly due to his natural compassion for them. He is therefore not prepared to fight. Everyone wants to show his opulence to his friends and relatives, but Arjuna fears that all his relatives and friends will be killed on the battlefield, and he will be unable to share his opulence after victory. This is a typical calculation of material life. The transcendental life, however, is different. Since a devotee wants to satisfy the desires of the Lord, he can, Lord willing, accept all kinds of opulence for the service of the Lord. And if the Lord is not willing, he should not accept a farthing, right? So this is the attitude of a devotee. Devotee is not against wealth. Devotee is not against no good things, good material things. If Lord willing, no, I will take that and I will use it in service of the Lord. And if Lord is not willing, if I forcibly get it, no, as I was mentioning before, no, it is a source of pain. Ishopanishad first sloka, it talks about that. Ishavasya midam sarvam etkinchat jagatyam jagat tena taktena bunjita ma grita kashyasviddanam. So everything animate and inanimate, belongs to the Lord. Sometimes we think that there's relatives and people around, they belong to me. How does they belong to us? Their bodies, which is made of earth, water, fire, air, ether, belongs to the Lord. The soul, aparyayamitastvanyam prakritim viddime param. No, like Lord claims that the soul is also property of the Lord. So it's all property of the Lord. No, right now they are my relatives, that's all. But then, no, they are property of the Lord. How can I exploit them for my benefit? No, how can I just demand, to have some people under me or people with me and things like that? Everything is property of the Lord. And anytime the Lord can call back his property, or anytime he can award something to be cared for in our care, right? So if the Lord gives something to manage, that is very good, because it's Lord's sanction is there, it will not contaminate us. But if Lord doesn't want, no, we should not over endeavor a particular thing, right? So that's a very important point here. Okay, Arjuna did not want to kill his relatives, and if there were any need to kill them, he desired that Krishna kill them personally. At this point, he did not know that Krishna had already killed them before their coming into the battlefield, and that he was only to become an instrument for Krishna. This fact is disclosed in the following chapters. As a natural devotee of Lord, Arjuna did not like to retaliate against his miscreant cousins and brothers, but it was the Lord's plan that they should be killed. The devotee of the Lord does not retaliate against the wrongdoers, but the Lord does not tolerate any mischief done to the devotees by the miscreants. The Lord can excuse a person on his own account, but he excuses no one who has done harm to his devotees. If somebody blasphemes the Lord can forgive him, right? So, but then if somebody does anything to his devotees, then the Lord will never forgive him. Therefore, the Lord was determined to kill the miscreants, although Arjuna wanted to excuse them. So this many different emotions are there in between. We have not covered everything, but then we have covered some essential things now, which is very practical and applicable for our day-to-day life, right? So Bhagavad Gita is an ocean. Actually, we cannot do justice, for even one sloka if we just have to finish it in some time. So Bhagavad Gita is a subject matter which has to be read again and again and again. And every time we read, we will explore a new depth into this whole thing. And we can actually contemplate. We should try to take some time out and then read these portions again and then try to contemplate it again, right? So we'll have a lot more depth of understanding coming in, right? Okay, text 36. Papameva dasman hatvaithana tathayinah tasman naraha vayam hantum dardarashtran sabandhavan svajanam hikatam hatva sukhinah shyama madhava. Sin will overcome us if we slay such aggressors. Therefore, it is not proper for us to kill the sons of Dhritarashtra and our friends. What should we gain, O Krishna, husband of goddess of fortune? Madhava means like a husband of goddess of fortune. And how could we be happy by killing our own kinsmen? Okay. According to Vedic injunctions, there are 6 kinds of aggressors: a poison giver, one who sets fire to the house, one who attacks with deadly weapons, one who plunders riches, one who occupies another's land, and one who kidnaps a wife. So now the Duryodhana and company, they had done all of them. No, they had given poison to Bhima, they had set fire to their house, Lakshagraha, and then they even tried to attack with deadly weapons, and they were plotting plans all the time to plunder the riches, right? And then occupying another's land and kidnapping one's wife. No, everything was done. Um, Such aggressors are at once to be killed, and no sin is incurred by killing such aggressors. Such killing of aggressors is quite befitting any ordinary man. But Arjuna was not an ordinary man. He was saintly by character, and therefore he wanted to deal with them in saintliness. This kind of saintliness, however, is not for Kshatriya. No? Although a responsible man in administration of a state is required to be saintly, he should not be cowardly. Right? So this is a very important principle. No, for a Brahmana, this kind of a forgiveness is very, very appreciated. But for a Kshatriya, if he does like this, no, it is condemned. We should not try to do somebody else's job. No, what now Arjuna is trying to do is he's trying to act like a Brahmana. For a Brahmana, this kind of an act is very, very good. No, it is appreciated. It's a laudable kind of a thing. But Arjuna is a Kshatriya. He cannot do this thing. No, he cannot he cannot forgive and let go things like this, right? Okay. For example, Lord Rama was so saintly that people even now are anxious to live in the kingdom of Lord Rama Rajya. But Lord Ram never showed any cowardice. Ravana was an aggressor against Rama because Ravana kidnapped Rama's wife Sita. Um, but Lord Rama gave him sufficient lessons, unparalleled in the history of the world. In Arjuna's case, however, one should consider the special type of aggressors, namely his own grandfather's own teacher, friends, sons, grandsons, etc. Because of them, Arjuna thought that he should not take the severe steps necessary against ordinary aggressors. Because besides that, saintly people are advised to forgive. Such injunctions for saintly persons are more important than any political emergency. Arjuna considered that rather than kill his own kinsmen for political reasons, it would be better to forgive them on grounds of religion and saintly behavior. He did not therefore consider such killing profitable simply for the matter of temporary bodily happiness. After all, kingdoms and pleasures derived therefrom are not permanent, so why should he risk his life and eternal salvation by killing his own kinsmen? No, this is a very no nice way. The whole purport is a very nicely arranged. No, this is how a confused person will be. No, he'll be thinking about his duty, he'll be thinking about something else, and so many conflicting, very powerful opinions actually arise in the mind. I'm sorry. Okay, so many conflicting, very powerful opinions simultaneously coming in the mind, right? So that's the position of Arjuna over here. So he's thinking about all these various things. So he's thinking about eternal salvation. How will he get liberation or salvation? Here he's been asked directly by the Supreme Lord to do something, and he's telling no, no, like I don't think it is beneficial. How will he get salvation? No, like salvation is not salvation or a liberation or getting to the spiritual world kind of a thing. So it is not possible just by inaction. That Krishna will deal with that in later on in the third chapter and things like that. So just by inaction, a person cannot attain a higher destination. One has to do his dharma. One has to do his job properly, right? Okay. Arjuna's addressing of Krishna as Madhava, or the husband of goddess of fortune, is also significant in this connection. He wanted to point out to Krishna that as the husband of goddess of fortune, he should not induce Arjuna to take up a matter which would ultimately bring about misfortune. Krishna, however, never brings misfortune to anyone, to say nothing of his devotees. So this is how many times when we go to the Lord, we say that we define our fortune and misfortune, and then we say like, no, why, my Lord, you are putting me in misfortune? Whatever the Lord puts us in, that is fortune. We cannot have our own formula of fortune and misfortune, right? So definitely whatever the Lord is doing for us, it is for our ultimate fortune, because the Lord is Madhava. He is the husband of goddess of fortune, and everything about him is auspicious, right? So the Lord, like association with the Lord, or hearing his katha, or chanting his names, or engaging in Lord's service can never become inauspicious. It must always be a fortunate situation, right? So that's the thing that's mentioned here. Text 37 and 38. Yadyapyetena pashyanti lobopahata chetasah kulakshaye kritam dosham mitradrohe cha patakam katam nyanyeyam asmabihi papadasman nivartitum kulakshaye kritam dosham prapashyatpir janardana. O Janardana, although these men, their hearts overtaken by greed, see no fault in killing one's family or quarreling with friends, why should we, who can see the crime in destroying a family, engage in these acts of sin? Purport. A Kshatriya is not supposed to refuse to battle or gamble when he is so invited by some rival party. Under such an obligation, Arjuna could not refuse to fight because he had been challenged by the party of Duryodhana. In this connection, Arjuna considered that the other party might be blind to the effects of such a challenge. Arjuna, however, could see the evil consequence and could not accept the challenge. Obligation is actually binding when the effect is good, but when the effect is otherwise, then no one can be bound. Considering all the pros and cons, Arjuna decided not to fight. Actually, Arjuna is not just throwing up things randomly. He is also like substantiating with the Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra. Basically, like he brings in a lot of these arguments from Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra. So, but then he forgot that he is there in front of the Supreme Lord, and following the orders of the Supreme Lord is more important than this analysis of pros and cons based on some lower scriptures, no Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra. So Krishna, and following the instructions of Krishna is transcendental to this Dharma Shastra and Artha Shastra, right? So there is also gradation. There are different kinds of rules that are there in the scriptures, and some of them are Artha Shastras are the lowest, wherein there are certain rules for gaining wealth or gaining some goods for us, right? So that is guided by the Artha Shastra. And Dharma Shastra says the moral codes of a materially conditioned soul, how a materially conditioned soul should perform things, that is Dharma Shastra. And then what Krishna is, when Krishna is directly telling something, that's the ultimate thing, right? So it is beyond the beyond the material sense gratification and beyond the material moral instructions. It has to go. It is much more higher. Krishna's direct instructions are. So that needs to be given the ultimate. This one, right? So that should be given the ultimate. What is it? Position to be followed up, right? Text 39. कुलक्षये प्रणश्यन्ति कुलधर्माः सनातनाः धर्मे नष्टे कुलं कृत्स्नम् अधर्मोऽपि भवत्युत. While with the destruction of the dynasty, the eternal family tradition is vanquished, and thus rest of the family becomes involved in irreligion. Purport. In the system of Varnashram institution, there are many principles of religious traditions to help members of the family grow properly and attain spiritual values. The elder members are responsible for such purifying processes in the family, beginning from birth to death. But on the death of the elder members, such family traditions of purification may stop, and the remaining younger family members may develop irreligious habits and thereby lose their chance for spiritual salvation. Therefore, for no purpose should the elder members of the family be slain or killed. Right? So this is a very powerful point Arjuna is mentioning. This is not an ordinary battle. This is we can say like this is more like a world war, more like a very, very powerful world war. So all the respectable people, all the elders and all the respectable people of the world are assembled in the battlefield, and a mass scale massacre is going to happen, right? So in such a massacre, all the respectable people, all the people uh, who are the cause for flourishing culture in different parts of the world, they will all be killed. And in absence of these people, so the adharma will flourish. No adharma, what is that? He says, adharma abhibhavatyuta. No, so adharma will flourish. So next shloka we'll see. Text 40. Adharma abhibhavat Krishna प्रदुष्यन्ति कुलस्त्रियः स्त्रीषु दुष्टाशु वार्ष्णेय जायते वर्णशङ्करः. When irreligion is prominent in the family, O Krishna, the women of the family become polluted, and from the degradation of womanhood, O descendant of Vrishni, comes unwanted progeny. Purport. Good population in human society is the basic principle for peace, prosperity, and progress in life. The Varnashram religion's principles were so designed that the good population would prevail in the society for general spiritual progress of state and community. Such population depends on the chastity and faithfulness of its womanhood. As children are very prone to be misled, women are similarly very prone to degradation. Right. So children and women are compared here. This children can be misled, and in the same way, the women can also be misled. Right. So therefore, both children and women require protection by the elder members of the family. Being engaged in various religious practices, women will not be misled into adultery. According to Chanakya Pandit, women are generally not very intelligent and therefore not trustworthy. So the different family traditions of religious activities should always engage them, and thus their chastity and devotion will give birth to a good population eligible for participating in Varnashrama Dharma. On the failure of such Varnashram Dharma, naturally the women become free to act and mix with men, and thus adultery is indulged in at the risk of unwanted population. Irresponsible men also provoke adultery in society, and thus unwanted children flood the human race at the risk of war and pestilence. Right? So this is a very important thing. So Chanakya Pandit says, Vishwasanaiva kartavya strishu rajakuleshu cha. So that's exactly like Prabhupada is actually putting it here. Why it is so? It's just like a child. You cannot trust a child. Why? Because the child is quite innocent, and he cannot apply his intelligence properly. So women as a class is considered to be like that. They have to be protected like children, and if they can be engaged in the religious principles nicely, so then they can be like of very, very great power. So there is two kinds of roles that are there. One is a role of emotional role, and another is a logical role. So the emotional role is very nicely done by the women. No, they are the binding force for the family, and they can actually take care of the family nicely. They can actually give the love and affection for the children, and give them nice opportunity for them to grow nicely and things like that. It is mentioned, one who has not experienced the love of a mother, he will be very, very mal nourished in his personality. So that is the role of a woman. And a man's role is to be logical, is to be like working hard, secure the family physically and things like that. So that is the role of a man. So in this way, like the both the roles have to be done perfectly. So now in Kali Yuga, there is an artificial attempt to make these two classes equal. So the men want to offer emotional support, and the women wants to be quite logical and like manage things and things like that. So these two are kind of a like opposite things, and the scriptures say it's better that we do our respective roles in a nice way, and in that way, like we can be like of good value. We can add value to the society. We can actually be a good part of the society, right? So okay, so now there is a question here in the chat box. How to tell and accept that this is what I deserve, and this is what I will get? Isn't it difficult to live with this? Is past karmas always more powerful than current life's hard work and intentions? Don't you think it can make one feel depressed? Enthusiasm may fade. Yeah, so in the modern culture, there is a lot of emphasis is given on the result, right? So that is why it can be a cause of depression. I am working hard and I should get my result, and why am I not getting? Because of my past karma. So why my past karma should decide all these things and things like that. So actually speaking, no, the Vedic culture says we should be satisfied with the quality of work that we do and not based on the result. And till the time we base our this one on the result, no, it will always be frustrating, right? So that is the first point. Now, depression is bound to happen whether you will get the result of the work or whether you don't get the result of the work, because you are attached to, if someone is attached to the result of the work, definitely they will be depressed. That's one point. Another point is how to get to know what we deserve. Whatever we get with minimal endeavor, that is what we deserve. No, that is what we deserve. So it's very, very clear. Over endeavor in terms of material things is not the Vedic culture. And somebody may say, hey, like, no, that means you will never become big in your life, you will never achieve something great in your life and things like that. Actually, it is bogus. So is it that people who are working, striving very hard and things like that, they are going to achieve something great? So many people read success stories, so many people slog like anything, they don't get anything. No, if it is not there in their karma, they will not get it. Probably they will get a few more inches than what they are supposed to get. That's all. So, and for that they have to do slogging and slogging and slogging, and finally the result is frustration, right? So we have to come to this point that whatever I deserve, only that I will get. It's like why is that past life's karma is dictating our this one? It's like if I don't work properly in a company, I just bunk the office all the time, and I had nice partying and I did all that things like which I'm not supposed to do. And on the day of salary, I'm going and working very hard. And the boss is telling, no, we cannot give you salary today. So and I'm saying like, no, today I'm working hard. Can't you see like I'm working very, very hard in front of your eyes? So why don't you give me salary? No, the salary is supposed to be for the past month, and you have not worked properly in the past month. Probably you're working now nicely. No, you can get a good salary in the next month, but not for today. You cannot, right? So that's the thing. Like many times this thing happens at the point of receiving. People go and do dharna, like, no, we want to get this. What did they do to deserve that particular thing? No, what did they do to get that particular facility, right? So that's the point of question, right? So it's past karma always decides. So no, that's the thing. And definitely no, our endeavor can change something, but if we do that change, and if we even get even 1 inch extra than what we deserve, that will be source of great pain. We will not be able to manage that. No, according to our past karma and whatever we are supposed to get, our bodies and our situation, our environment, everything is designed carefully by the Lord. And now I want something different, from what the Lord has planned. Definitely it will not fit into the system. It will cause complete misfit, and it will cause complete ruckus into the plan, right? So that's why people are miserable. So they're not able to follow the plan of the Lord. They're not able to follow their own plan of karma. No, they have only planned in the past life. No, by doing some wrong acts, no, they are supposed to suffer. And when the result comes, like, they're depressed. Why they have to be depressed? Why can't they say that, okay, this is what I deserve, it's okay, perfectly fine? No, why can't they say like that? No, always we want something more than what we deserve. So no, that's the major problem. So that's where if we want something less than what we deserve, so then definitely we will get what we deserve, and we will always be grateful. Oh, I've got something very wonderful. No, God has gifted me this very wonderful thing, right? So many people, they don't have even homes, proper homes to live. And we can say, like, no, I could have been there, one in the street, like roaming around without anybody. But then no, God has given me a nice home to live, nice relatives to live with, and nice environment and things like that. How many people who don't have these things? No, should I not be grateful to the Lord? Should I not be thankful to the Lord? So most of the times it happens that no, we will only catch the Lord for what he has not given. We will never count how many things that the Lord has actually given us, right? So this is where the and this one is like what we deserve. To understand what we deserve is minimal endeavor or the optimum endeavor. What normally we can do with that, what benefit or what things we can achieve. That is our no benefit. That is our that is to our credit, right? Okay, so we have come to the end of the session. Thanks a lot for participating. No, Srimad Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai. If anybody has any questions, they can send a message to me in the WhatsApp. I can respond to it. Hare Krishna. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. So today evening we have the Brahma's prayer sessions also. I request devotees to join for that. Right? Hare Krishna.